Another great score from another great Patreon supporter. Robby, thank you so much for participating. And you left me a note sort of apologizing about the mock up being a bit crude. And look, don't you worry about that at all. It's totally fine. It's just, I can hear what works and what doesn't, and it's all good, really, seriously. So now, let's look at the way that this is arranged. And it's kind of interesting. It starts off with like firsts and seconds alternating with each other. And just to let you know, it's probably like you get way more continuity just leaving it in a single instrument. And I know that's just really totally boring, but maybe better just to have everything be in second violin right here, right? Just stay right there, and then you can have the first violin do its little number, right? And just stick with that. Just like give the melody to the first violins because they're right next to the audience, and they'll be much more. Be much more noticeable. And the same thing goes here for the violas. You're sort of trading off divisi between groups of viola players, and you just get a way better effect if it's just the violas all the way through, because this is the stuff that they play for a living, in operas. These kinds of patterns are really easy to play on viola, and as a result, they are many, many times scored. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, and then doubling, of course, like with the bassoons taking turns, that is totally fine. Hey, what if you were to have the first bassoon play this figure and the second bassoon play that figure? You don't really need to do any kind of dovetailing, overlapping on a note, because there is no long connected line, right? These are each groups of, just very discrete groups of beams, sort of beam groups with slurs on them, right? So there's just no need for you to tie over like this, or to dovetail over from one instrument to the next. So I would just say, first, second, first, second, and so on will work fine. Or first, second, first, second. See, that way you just give the alternating pattern to the other instrument, and then they can just focus on the pattern that they need to play. All right? Another way of doing it. Now, okay, you might have heard me beat up on everybody for using A1, and, get in line. Because A1 is not a thing. Okay? A2 just means with two. Which two? Number one or number two. Right? It is a way of collectively referring to two separate people. So you can't just say like, oh, that's with one. Well, which one? Is it number one or, door number one or door number two? Player number one or player number two? You've got to tell us right here. A1, you probably mean the first player, right? So don't do A1. It's not a thing. Everybody stop doing A1. I'm going to put that in the next, in the guidelines for the next evaluation, right? Concert scoring, and you are putting two on a staff. I know I was sort of insisting on that this time around. That's probably why I ended up getting a lot of A1s. But there is no A1. Just tell us that this is the first player or the second player. Okay, so just noticing here, like there, you really should put the dynamic on the beginning, right? And you don't need to really mark mezzo piano at all, right? This can all be soft all the way through here. And this is really lovely, the way you've got this. I just love this jaunty rhythm that you've got going throughout here. It works great. What about if everybody is just playing P and, all throughout here, and so is the flute, but it just, is like in just, P espressivo, right? And then put in some hairpins, like just go beginning of hairpin, end of hairpin, and then opposite, and just get rid of the mezzo piano, and you have got yourself a line that will sound fine in concert. Might not sound that clear on your mock-up, but that's pretty much the way it should be done. And then same thing here, first oboe, or I guess you just have one oboe and one English horn, so that all works great. Okay, and then A2 should be right over the beginning of the note, right, or beginning of the beam group. Same thing here, right? Just like you had here on the bassoons. All right, so, so aside from that, pretty much everything works right up to there. And if you want like a really beautiful fluttering kind of background, you can bring everybody down to pianissimo, and then just have the firsts come in here, like giving these all to the seconds. The firsts come in here on piano, and the flutes, or first flute, also on piano, right? And just give them the melody. But don't do piano plus mezzo piano melody, right? That's not the way to go with it, right? Mezzo piano is not a solo sound, right? Because it's a graying of the color of the sound, right? So all right, think of it this way. The instruments, the orchestral instruments, are made to sound like they're made to dominate different realms of force and restraint, right? And those are big realms, like, and think of a big circle with the letter P in the middle for piano, right? And then just like there's lots of flex in and out of that huge circle, right? And then just there's like on the left side of your circle, right over here, there is pianissimo, triple P, blah 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 blah, and then kind of here intersecting with another circle, kind of like a Venn diagram, we have mezzo piano and mezzo forte. Well, that is the area where the instruments start to lose their unique color and their sensitiveness and their everything else, right? So because those are blending tones, right? So mezzo piano blending in the background to like a mezzo forte to forte sound, and so on, right? So, but like soloing on that grayish area, it just does not get the best out of the instrument, right? So it's better just to say P espressivo, and then the player can just run around in that huge realm of P. Sorry, I did it again. Somebody's going to record all these and just make a tape of me talking about P all the time. But it's true. You really do need to just to think of P as being a big area of its own, and not having to go to mezzo piano to get a little bit, like to inflect a little bit more force. Mezzo piano, just keep it in that crosshairs of, or the crossing section of the Venn diagram, right? Okay, so things are starting to build up here. Strings plus winds with a touch of harp glissando. You know, what could be better? That all works pretty well. I like the fact that some of these elements back off and you've got your trill. It's great. And just a touch of muted players right here. Now once again, Ah1, right? There is no Ah1. And here you're asking the first horn player to play like this nice smooth line. Okay, so it just brings an element of force into it when you are doing this kind of doubling, where the horn is going to really take over the tone, right? It's going to take over the timbre of these other players, right? So you've got it worked out so that you've got a triple octave here, clarinet on top, horn in the middle, bass clarinet on the bottom. The middle of this triple octave is going to just really stand out, and it's also going to dominate the strings to a degree. I mean, it could have been, you could have just done the same thing with with octave clarinets and then a bassoon and bass clarinet on the bottom, or to just avoid stacking up clarinets, you could have put English horn in the middle, right? But this is just going to be very forceful, and then you sort of ease off on things, right? I kind of miss. See, now I miss the horn, right? Yeah, there's strange little numbers. Like, I guess you're numbering the staves as you go along. So long as you've got a number here and a rehearsal mark there, then you don't really need to number every single bar unless it's like in a box at the bottom or sort of at the top. And just kind of try to keep it out of the way because it really clutters up the score. I'm seeing it all over the place. Just, for a concert music, you don't really need to do that. You don't need to number every staff. Right, the players can just look here and count, right? They can go, oh, 13, okay, 1, 2, or 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, I know where I am, right? Okay, and this is all good, bassoons plus horns. I think you could just cut the third and fourth, right? Just cut those guys, then you got bassoons plus horns, and you just have a beautifully moderated sound there. Because right here, like, the bassoons don't contribute anything, right? They're going to give a slight quality to the tone of the horns, but unless you mark the horns way down, right, and just have like, starting off like forte here, mezzo forte there, crescendo, not to sforzando in the horns, but just crescendo a little bit and come back, and then sforzando in the bassoons. I mean, unless you really do all that kind of tweaking, it just doesn't really help anything. So just cut the third and fourth, and then you've got a nicer, much more balanced kind of thing. And even at that, I would balance them out and have the horns down a dynamic degree here in order to balance with the bassoons. Okay, and then going on, we're frolicking happily along here with the fairly high but not unplayable English horn part right in here. And then we're going back to our dancey little rhythm. Ah1. There is no Ah1. Okay. And then, back and forth our pizzicato. I love that. A little bit of harp. Now, the harp is not going to sound like anything, right? Even with this kind of delicate texture, you got pizzicato, you got pianissimo, arco, and these little players dancing back and forth. Jack your harp up an octave or play octaves, right? So just play like this is the left hand, and then an octave above there is a part that is for the right hand, and that will stand out. Okay, and then that will be in a triple octave stack with this glockenspiel, right? So this glockenspiel part is 2 octaves above this harp. So if you make this into octaves, then you'll fill in the middle between the two, right? And that will actually be a really nice sound. Okay, and then we're just kind of back to this harp part once again. Make the harp part in octaves, or else it just will get completely swallowed up by the clarinets and strings. Okay, and now we've got, everything. Yeah, I'm not so sure if I'm sold on it getting big at the end of the third group, of the third beam group. I think that uh, Mussorgsky intends for it to get big just right here and just suddenly, right? No crescendo, just ba-da-da, right? Because like by putting forte here, this, the emphasis of this, like the end of this melodic gesture gets swallowed up, right, and just gets turned into something else that it wasn't before. Now this, of course, is like this low D sharp on the piccolo. Um, that's like not anything. Do you know what I mean? So like the piccolo is like not really contributing anything to the sound until right around here, and even at that, it's not really much. Like once you get to the D sharp, this note right here contributes something. This is just you know something for the piccolo player to do, but it doesn't really add much. Um, yeah, so bass clarinet going pretty high there, right? This is really more of a clarinet part, right? Why not just give it to your first, not A1 clarinet or second clarinet, right? Just a better, just much more easy, secure scoring rather than just sending the bass clarinetist up into the stratosphere. I mean, it actually is a cool sound, but there's nothing exposed about it, right? There's nothing that really makes it necessary, as compared to other instruments that could be contributing it much more easily. That's cool. Bassoons, and then we got that same split scored out in horns plus trumpets. Now, this is a case where if you really intend then both of these parts should be on both staves, right? Because this is a first horn plus third horn part, and this is a second horn plus fourth horn part, right? Anything when you just reach for it like this up to that A sharp, that is like intended to be doubled. So to do this properly, to score this properly, would be to have both voices on a staff, right? So first and second. So the first part taking the upper part, second taking the lower, and then the same thing for third and fourth. All right, and then but seeing as how you're already like doubling those pitches on trumpet, that is going to be massive. That is just going to be suddenly just huge, right? And just a question of like, do you want to give away that much right at the beginning, right? And it also sort of like makes a lot of this stuff irrelevant right in here because the weight is so huge, right? That I mean, these middle parts right in here will just get swallowed right into the trombones. And you also have to think of like really, really big scoring, really, really small scoring, which is kind of cool, right? But, once again, octaves in the harp, very highly recommended. Okay, it's kind of the same thing again, once again, same advice. But why no first violins? They have such a hugely important role here, right? You take them out, right, and it just really wounds it, and like no second violin contribution either. So it just really there's almost no support for the upper winds here, right, and nothing to leaven the intensity of so much brass, right, taking over the upper partials there, right. Okay. Now this is cool. See, this is like a third plus first horn part, right? So that makes more sense. And you should put some nuances in here. Ba da da bum. So just like crescendo, back down, right? And if these brass players are playing mezzo forte, and this should be back to mezzo forte, right? Then these guys should be forte. If you want any kind of balance there, because you are blending or you're merging doubling the strings and the brass. So if you want that combination, you really have got to balance those two textures. Okay, and that's all fun. I like the lower brass here, kind of grunting along. That's kind of fun. Yeah, and then bassoons. That's all good until you get to here, right? And I feel like you might have heard me already lecture about this in some other parts. And and it's also true for the strings, like either go divisi and then like the place to divide is not here. The place to divide is like here, right? Just have like one group kind of going up a few notes, like maybe going up to the fourth or fifth note, trading off, getting the upper parts, and then diving back down with the lower instrument, and then coming right back up, right? Probably, yeah. I'm just thinking a good place to divide it would be right here. Okay, and then just taking these top parts and then coming back down and going back up again. But yeah, because it's just a lot to ask for the cellos, just to play these long sweeping lines as if they were nothing, and it really is like, it is like Bach partita, or Bach cello sonata, or concerto type stuff, which is so easy for like the clarinets, right? Or bass clarinet, right? The bass clarinet could do this like standing on its head, or just standard clarinet, right? Nothing for them to do, but like you're asking the strings to just cover this wide range where they have to really think about fingering up and changing strings and jumping up and repositioning their fingers and all this other kind of stuff and swooping back down again. And it sort of becomes like the string parts to Harry Potter, Hedwig's theme, right? So I mean, we kind of want to avoid just putting so much technical pressure on our string parts. And then harp, could do it all day. Really, like if you really want this to sound like something, though, it should be up an octave, right? Okay. Yeah, this is really fun. I like the piccolo on top, right? And we're kind of getting these contrasts now, clarinets, and then flutes with oboes underneath them, and then muted horn. I would say stopped horn here. It's just a lot easier, and you just get that really flat, really choked up sound, which probably is going to work better here than muted. And then that contrasts really well with muted horns in trumpets, and that's a really good contrast of register as well, right? Okay, and good solid accompaniment by our players, but once again, you have got to balance, right? So clarinets plus strings, that's fine. Violins plus winds is getting a little bulky, right? Just really becoming a lot of string tone compared to, a lot of wind tone compared to string tone. And then here we're getting into like horns and trumpets, and man, this really has got to be marked down, marked up, right? You got to be conscious of those balance problems. And now we have the build right here. I really love this part. Ba ba bum bum. Kind of cool to see how everybody dealt with it. Bass clarinet taking a really active role in here. It's just so much going on in here. Just so many voices in those upper winds. Maybe you could have spared the English horn to kind of double the first violins, because like they got nothing significant going on in terms of like doubling at all, right? So you have a lot of weight sitting on that, and then like an octave lower. Why couldn't you have had the violas and cellos doubling, first and seconds, the way that they are, and then you could have had bassoons and bass clarinets on the lower voice, and English horn, and maybe also oboe on the upper voice doubling, and because you don't really need the double reeds in here at all. You could just, like, the clarinets are doing the job, right? You're doubling the clarinets and the oboes, but you don't really need that textural. The clarinets playing under the flutes will give you a beautiful, clear sound, right? And when you mix that with the oboes and English horns, it becomes more Tchaikovskyan, right? Now here, this is just totally invisible, and is really not. I'm seeing this in a couple of other arrangements as we're getting towards the end of these scores. It's just really not a harp part at all, and it's that's really that kind of fiddly playing back and forth and alternating notes. Just really okay. And then once again, I would just really advise you to have separate percussion parts, each with their discrete name, which is referenced here, so you don't have to think about, oh well, my page layout changed and now I forgot to remind people that this was a snare drum. Right? Just really have separate lines for every single instrument. It helps me. It helps the conductor. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about like assigning the player. The players will like look at all the different parts. You give them a percussion score with all the different instruments on it, and then they will apportion themselves appropriately. Okay. All right, and then we get to our mini apotheosis. Okay, and here once again, I just felt like you've got this massive like brass chorale in here, and you're backing that up with some string support. And I really like the double bass tremolo. Okay, but it's a little uneven, right? We got forte, diminuendo, no diminuendo here in any of the lower string parts. We've got one instrument, right? Taking this high melodic thing, and it is only doubled from below by a single clarinet. So I think that just really there needs to be a lot more mass of tone here. Sort of similar to recommending a couple of previous scores just now. I would say, if you can just have octaves in here with your first and seconds, then you've already got the doubling for the lower voice, and you can have the flute on the higher voice, like A2 flutes. And and you can just provide a little bit of support with the lower winds to some of the lower strings, and so on. So there's just ways. I think that there is like a way of doing this without just kind of doubling winds and strings and not supporting enough on the on that high line, and also a good opportunity to balance, right? So if all of this is mezzo forte, right, and you back this off and like give your last dynamic here, not just diminuendo line going into a rest, right? Should be so mezzo forte down to triple P, right? And same thing here. Okay, now the very last thing to talk about is, once again, I mean, I don't know how many hornists are playing this, but let's just assume one horn player, right? The first horn player is going yeah la 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 la, and it just really just has this kind of effect on a brass instrument. This kind of playing is better if it's just like staccato. I mean, that gives a wonderful challenge, and it's a great way to punctuate what's going on, right? So just put the da, and it really just starts to sound like that, right? So really watch out about like really long lines that are slurred in alternating notes like this for like horns or anybody in the brass section. Okay, so that's my strong caution. Okay, now we're getting to section B. And the Misterioso part, once again, kind of advising people like the dun 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 was really intended to be continued on here, I feel. All right, so slurring between these two pairs of notes, right? Between these pairs of notes, same thing happening here. So you're doing oboe plus clarinet in this really soft passage, and it'll have a tendency to sort of stand out a bit, which might work against the tremolo here in the violins, right? So like flutes though would like blend just perfectly into that, and you don't need to go flutter tonguing to match the I would say don't flutter tongue, but the flutes will just very softly blend right in with the strings, where you won't get that blend here with with clarinet plus oboe on that top line. This is cool. Bassoon plus harp plus cello. Right? And here I would say you could also do octaves in the harp and just really underline it and mark it way, way up, right? Piano for everybody here, mezzo forte for the harp. And this line needs some support right? It's just not enough for the bass clarinetist to do this, right? So like whether you were to bulk it up slightly with the pianissimo horn, or you know, maybe have a divisi thing happening here where you have the lower cellos go ba-da-da-da-dum, and then you have the upper cellos go, you know, vibrato, or excuse me, not vibrato, tremolo, right? And then add some slurs to this, right? And then you fixed your section, right? And just kind of more of the same, building, getting bigger and bigger. So here I feel like you're adding more wind instruments, okay? And that's all cool. This is cool, the piccolo doubling with the flute. That's all fine. I just feel that like instead of hitting us like there could have been some kind of harmonic build to just really add more like urgency to this, right? Just like we are going to this, you know, it's just like this little frolic, this fun thing that's happening here. I love this that you marked your harp quadruple F. I think fortissimo is fine, right? And for these sweeps. Now, you made one mistake here, okay, and that is this, right? These parts are supposed to ease off, right, as we approach this, right? So probably this should have been stuck in here, right? And I would say, like, it's fatal for you to mark mezzo forte for your winds in these trills and, like, forte for the brass, right? They're just, you know, once again, the winds would just be just this bare kind of twitching in the background. Mark both parts exactly the same. Forte for strings and winds, right? And then mezzo forte for the brass. And if you want a cumulative effect, go forte, mezzo forte, forte, fortissimo, forte, fortissimo. Okay, and that'll be a way better blend, right? And then just really give you some direction to go from. I really like the fact that you back off of lots of mezzo dynamics. An orchestrator after my own heart. Okay, and here this may not be enough strength for you to build up to this huge fortissimo. You may really need to double up a lot of this in the strings in order to get the best effect here, right? So because it's sort of like it's kind of this massive, beautiful, gorgeous, gushing tutti, and then just suddenly this little kind of wind band is playing a little bit and kind of pushing towards this, but you know, fortissimo, there's just no possible way that this is going to come as anything other but just a sudden hammer blow, right? Rather than a build, which is kind of what you had before, right? Because of the cooperation from all parties, except for the brass, who could have joined in a little. All right, so anyway, so just think about those proportions a little bit, okay? And then see, like, then we have the same problem here, kind of a wind band approach. This is neat. I love the repeated staccato notes, you know, and we're just really headed for somewhere on this next page. You know, this big Borodin waltz here, right? And I'm a little puzzled here at why the winds are absent from, you know, from helping out with the strings right in here. They're just really desperately needed. Yeah, and that is some high. I mean, just, yeah, the trombones are just starting right off the bat from that, on that B flat. You know, you could drop this trombone part, right? And you wouldn't hurt anything at all, right? It would be totally fine, right? And then just bulk up your strings here with some doubling from the upper winds. And you can also double some of this harmony in here and stretch it out a little bit with the middle winds, right? So English horn, clarinet can be helping out, right? While the oboes and flutes and even piccolo help to double some of these octaves in here to keep the trumpet from just completely blasting out the first violins. You just won't hear anything, right? Okay. And then just back and forth. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, some of this is problematic. Like B flat C, B flat C, B flat C. You know, I mean, that's pretty tough to make. You know, you might as well just have the oboist just hitting those B flats, right? This other stuff is okay, and this is doable on first violin. I'm gonna kind of give him a laugh, right? But it should also be accented. It should all be accented, right? Just really just bring all this stuff out. And where'd the brass go? right? We need them. We need their power. We need their majesty. We need their punch you in the face just as soon as look at you kind of force right in here. And then I love this harmony and this roll coming off of this, and then this kind of sweep downwards and pizzicato rising, and yeah, it's all pretty well conceived. It's nice. Okay, I really like it. And then just down to these trills. I think it gets really thick in here when you add the oboe. I like the octave right here, and in fact, you did like suddenly you really thicken it because you jump up with the clarinet too. You know what I mean? So, what if the clarinet part turned into a doubling of the cello, or excuse me, viola part, right? And then everybody eased way off here. Okay, and yeah, this harp is completely harp and glockenspiel. You know, if the harp were 2 octaves higher, or played an octave higher in an octave, right? Then along with the glockenspiel, then it would make sense. But just where it is, it's invisible. All right, and then you've got this lovely harp, which is building towards the section here at C. And here at C, I think you are in your element. Yeah, this is really nice. I just love this whole thing right in here, and I forgive you for putting the piano part into an instrument, right? Which is kind of a big no-no. You know, just having the celesta play the harp part, and you know that is very fun. Yeah, you're kind of getting down to the lowest possible note here. You're going all the way down to C, right? Okay, well, all right. So we're assuming that this celesta part is sounding an octave higher, right? Lowest possible note is actual sounding middle C, written C below middle C, right? So who's this guy over here? That's not a possible note. It's not a big deal, just bring it up. But, you know, very similar to the way that that glockenspiel parts are kind of useless below their written middle C, so the bottom perfect fourth of notes. You know, have kind of a thunky sound as opposed to like a more glistening free sound. The celesta also has that, like when you get below written middle C, right? So the actual sounding pitches of middle C up to the C above, they're just very kind of funky. You know, they don't really have that beautiful, glorious, glistening sound, which, you know, some sound sets are realistic about it, and will make a sort of a thunkier sound down in those lower registers of those instruments, and some will not. Okay, the glissando here is perfect. You know, just like absolutely in the style of what's going on here. One thing that you should be very careful about, though, is that the glockenspiel is so it's so resonant of an instrument that it will tend to cloud, right? So all of these repeated notes, or sorry, alternating notes coming before, will tend to cloud over, right? So you'll have to mark in some pedal markings, like I would say pedal each beam group, right? So that you kind of cut out some of the overhang. Yeah, and this, you know, like if you're expecting some kind of big playing right in here, this is not gonna, you know, it's not gonna, like, celesta is kind of like a one dynamic instrument, so it's not going to really sound a whole lot louder. You know, they can sort of making the hammers of the celesta hit faster, right, more forcefully on the bells does not make those bells ring a whole lot louder. Okay, and this is cool right in here. I like this a lot in the celesta part. Okay, although, like, look at where your celesta scoring is. It's below middle C. Sorry, it's below sounding middle C. It's below written C in the staff, right? So that's totally not possible. So, like, the parts of this are possible if you scored them up a bit, or, like, just hold off on that low A sharp right there. Okay, but otherwise kind of not possible. Bassoon, like I've made comments on this before, this has got to be slurred. You've got to trade off between the parts so that it doesn't become too virtuosic. I mean, why couldn't this have been a bass clarinet part? Bass clarinets can do this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And then just give these notes right here to the first bassoon, and then you solve your problems immediately. No more problems, right? Okay, and then I like this. This is all good, alternating between the celesta and winds to like percussion, brass, and strings. That's all cool. And then of course, as the music builds and grows, we're adding more to this. The winds start to play a greater role, bulking up certain parts in ways that are great for their range. Okay, that's great. And then we have our sort of like abortive climax coming up. Not that yours is, but just like the way the music is written. It seems like it's going to another massive tutti. Okay. Yeah, and this is all fine. I feel like maybe this could have been a little bit more integrated as it sort of reaches upwards, more internal harmony, like things, harmonized parts, and like just adapting the scoring more and more rather than transcribing it. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so like this is still cool. It's kind of pretty much just octaves and unisons. Um, but the clarinet part I really like a lot. So yeah. Yeah, so just kind of feeling that could have happened right in here. That's all. So my advice with this, I mean, you've got your um, cello kind of playing along with. So cellos and violas are an octave below the trumpet. I almost feel like this would work best if the trumpet did not have, like, first trumpet didn't have second trumpet to sit on, right? If the lower voice were something like a clarinet or an English horn, and then your first clarinet, excuse me, your first trumpet can be very schmaltzy or very L.A. Confidential or Chinatown sounding, right? You can have that kind of classic sound, that kind of wonderful nostalgic sound coming out of it. But like when you pair up the two trumpets together, I'd feel it like one steals from the other, right? So you have to figure out which voice you want that classy trumpet to be in, and then give the other part to, and it could even be like you could have you could dole it up this way, bum 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 da 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 da. So just like really the more active part could be the trumpet part, and then you could just have like English horn kind of gliding around it and just adding notes on above and below it, right? Or oboe, or muted, like muted. It could be muted trumpet plus oboe, which is a really great pairing. Yeah. So and then this is cool. But that is just so much force, though, right? Um, and then you've got something similar happening in the horns, along to violas and cellos. Yeah, yeah, and this was all really nice in here. Trombone plus bassoon and English horn. That was really nice. Plus, just doubling with strings. That worked great. And then I love the glockenspiel plus harp. Now, this would have been perfect as um, harmonics, right? If these were harmonic tones, I just feel that would have been the icing on the cake. And plus clarinet. Now you cannot do this. You cannot do a staccato with a tie added to it, right? Just think about your articulations there. Now, this I thought was great right here at the end. The trading off, like pizzicato all the way, plus the going back and forth between the different timbres, bass clarinet to bassoon to English horn to flute to piccolo, right? So that all worked out really, really great. It's just a touch of glockenspiel at the end. So that was really, really nicely done. So yeah, um, yeah, so just I know a lot of what I was telling you there was just some basic, some score coaching, kind of like watch out for this, mark this a little differently, so on and so forth. But hopefully there was some good orchestration advice in there too, and just once again thinking about proportions and and balance and other things like that. And but still just a great score, Robbie. I mean, just alive with with really great ideas and a strong approach and intriguing colors and just dreaming up passages with just wonderful textures to them that I just totally didn't even think about putting in there at all. So that's one of those things that just gives me that perspective on it that is I feel makes my orchestration more powerful to evaluate scores like this. And I thank you for that, and thank you so much for sharing this with everybody else, and putting it up there on the roster for me to evaluate, and everything else. So and just everything like your friendship online, and supporting on Patreon, and just like presence in the community. Those are things that are priceless to me. So thank you, Robbie, and I'll just say, wait for 2020. I think that score will be just right up your line. So, on to the very last score that I've got to evaluate before I go on vacation.